Tokyo, the capital of Japan and the world's third most populous city. As of 2025, approximately 33 million people call this place home. The region has a history that stretches back to ancient times, so it's no surprise some ghost stories have cropped up there. Here are 5 creepy haunted places in Tokyo. Zoshiyaga is a neighborhood in the Toshima ward of Tokyo. It's described as a quiet, underlooked area, a sharp contrast to the main part of the city. But some of its residents may exist between the worlds of the living and the dead. Zoshiyaga Cemetery was established in 1834 and is the final resting place for about 8,000 people. But sadly, legend has it that it might be haunted by numerous suicide victims. Some versions of the story say these people chose to end their lives at the very cemetery they would later be buried in. Visitors have reported feeling an eerie chill, glimpsing shadowy figures moving among the graves, and seeing the hands and faces of the dead emerging from behind the trees. Every day, both in Tokyo and around the world, millions of people ride various subway systems. It's a cheap and convenient way to get to work, home, or to visit tourist destinations. But one station on the Tokyo Metro was part of a dark era in the city's history. One of the trains of Minami Senju Station goes right over the Kozukapura execution grounds. These grounds were in use during Japan's Edo period, which lasted from the early 1600s to the 1800s. And it's said that over 200,000 people met their ends there. People who stop at or walk to the grounds claim to see ghosts along with fireballs and white shadows. They've also claimed to feel a strangely heavy and stagnant atmosphere. Those who catch the train have reported to see shadow people, ghostly handprints in the train windows, and floating balls of light. Screams have also been heard in the middle of the night, though hopefully those really are ghosts and not some living person screaming for help. Another interesting story comes from a guest who was staying at a hotel near the station. According to the guest, someone was turning their slippers 90 degrees every time they left the room. When they inquired about it at the front desk worker said the hotel had a ghost. This worker told the guest to put some sweets and alcohol by the door if the paranormal activity bothered them. When the guest complied, the activity stopped. In the mountains of the western part of the Tokyo metropolis sits the ruins of Hachioji Castle. The castle was originally built as the residence of a samurai named Ujitaro Hojo. But when the castle was attacked by the armies of another samurai named Toyotomi Hideyoshi, it quickly fell. And many of the castle's residents chose to take their own lives after the siege. But as is usually the case with haunted places, death doesn't seem to have stopped them from making their appearances. Visitors to the castle report seeing horrifically injured ghosts of samurais still patrolling. The batteries of cameras and other technological devices are said to die, even when they're fully charged. Strange balls of light have also been seen, both in person and photographs. The screams and cries of samurais and other castle residents has been heard, as well as the sound of the castle burning. Visitors who don't respect the land are said to get into unfortunate accidents after they leave. And a nearby waterfall is said to turn red on the anniversary of the battle, mimicking the blood of those who ended their lives there. What was left of the castle was designated as a historical site in 1951. It underwent renovations in 1990, though very little of it remains today. Still, it appears to be open to the public, so pay them a visit and see for yourself if the stories are true. On Mount Takao in western Tokyo sits an old mountain pass. It's no longer in use by the general public, but is reportedly connected to one of Japan's most notorious crimes. Tsutomu Miyazaki killed 4 young girls in Tokyo between 1988 and 1989. His oldest victim was 7, his youngest just 4. The murders were especially brutal, with reports that, while I won't get into details on here, earned him the nickname Cannibal Killer. According to some sources, his 7-year-old victim was killed near Komine Pass, very close to the old Komine Tunnel. It's probably for this reason that paranormal stories have cropped up here. From what I've been able to gather about this area, it's pretty wooded and mountainous, so not a place that a lot of kids would probably go, especially without an adult. But several visitors have reported seeing a young girl there. Some reports say the girl has mutilations that resemble what this killer did to his victims. One blogger who visited the area claimed they and a friend who accompanied them heard the laughter of a young girl while they were there. They also said they didn't even know about the stories until later. Other reported hauntings in the area include disembodied screams and sudden, unexplainable chills. One cyclist claimed to feel something cold and wet grab his ankle, but when he looked down, there was nothing there. Also known as Tamaya Inari Shrine, this shrine has been destroyed and rebuilt several times in a couple of different places. It currently sits in Yotsuya and the Shinjuku ward of Tokyo, and the story behind it is crazy enough to put even the most dramatic of soap operas to shame. Tamaya Oiwa was the wife of Tamaya Aiman, a ronin or wandering samurai with no lord or master. But the Tamaya marriage was troubled. When Oiwa got pregnant with the couple's son, Aiman had to get a job as an umbrella maker to help make ends meet. The work was tedious, and he grew to resent his wife. He soon fell in love with Ume, the granddaughter of the rich doctor who lived next door to the couple. Aiman wanted to marry his new love, but in order to do that, Oiwa had to go. Aiman asked his doctor neighbor to brew up a poison for Oiwa that severely disfigured her face. Some sources say it was actually a facial cream. In order to have a reason to divorce her, he paid a friend of his to sexually assault her so he could accuse her of infidelity. But when the friend snuck into their house one night when Aiman was gone, he was so horrified by Oiwa's face that he blacked out. Yeah, I told you this story was insane. Oiwa hadn't known about her disfigurement before then and finally saw it in a mirror. She was so distraught that she tried to brush her hair over it, but it just fell out in bloody clumps. Her body was later discovered by a servant, and when the servant told Aiman about his wife's death, he was actually pretty happy. Naturally, the servant thought this was suspicious, so Aiman ended up killing him too. He then nailed both Oiwa's body and the servant's body to a door, threw them in a river, and lied to everyone and said they had been having an affair. A few days later, Aiman and Ume were married. But on their wedding night, Aiman saw a strange vision of Oiwa's face on the face of his new wife's. Distraught, he stabbed her with a sword, only to realize afterward that he had just killed his new bride. He then ran outside, only to end up on the side of a cliff, where Oiwa's ghost promptly pushed him to his death. Other sources say he ran into the woods and went mad, while staying at an isolated cabin. This is just a short, simplified version of the story. There are many different variations, and it's also really popular in Japan. It's been adapted numerous times, with maybe the most famous being the stage play Yotsuya Kaiden, written by Tsuruya Nanboku IV in 1825. It's been said that the shrine was later built to placate Oiwa's vengeful spirit. Nowadays, there are various legends associated with both the shrine and Oiwa's grave in the neighborhood of Sugamo. The cast and crew of various adaptations of the story are said to pay visits to Oiwa's grave to pay their respects. If they don't, the production is said to become cursed. Similarly, bad things are said to happen to those who don't pay proper respects at the shrine. Some say if you visit Oiwa's grave out of mere curiosity, your right eye will swell up, just like hers did when she was poisoned. And if you make your way over to her grave and listen carefully, you just might hear the sounds of her screams. There is a bit of disagreement about the level of hauntings at the shrine. Some of my sources said it was one of the most haunted places in Tokyo. Others say it wasn't even haunted at all. And the story of Oiwa and Iman's relationship was also heavily embellished. They were real people living in the early 1600s, but their marriage was apparently a happy one. Yotsuya Kaiden, the most famous adaptation of their story, was written 2 centuries after they lived, and it's not clear where Nanboku got his inspiration from. Still, I hope you found Oiwa's story as interesting as I did. So those are all the haunted places in Tokyo I have for you today. I've been playing Silent Hill F on and off for about the past month or so. I'm really bad at it, but it did inspire me to look more into Japan and Japanese culture. I do have a couple more videos in this vein that I'd like to do in the near future, so be sure to subscribe if that sounds like something you're interested in. Thanks for watching, and have a creepy day.